Sounds good. So thanks for the introduction, Judy. My name is Amy Choi, just as she said, and today I'm going to be discussing the Sustainable Science Project, which was my climate action project for this year. So just a brief table of contents, I'm going to be discussing the overview of my project, so my initial goals and how I was going to achieve this. And then I'm going to talk about my survey information, what did it include, who helped with the survey, and then we're going to talk about the results. So how is this info helpful? How can we put it into perspective? And what conclusions can we make? And then lastly, we're going to look at toward the future. So what are the next steps for this project and what are other avenues that we can explore? So first, when I first presented this project, I had three initial goals. So the first was to raise awareness, in particular with lab research. So a lot of the times, a lot of waste is generated from labs. It's 55 billion tons per year. And there's also lots of information regarding energy consumption as well. So we wanted to really show labs what they're contributing to the environment, and we wanted to offer solutions through TerraCycle, namely, on how to circumvent this and how to really reduce their waste and work toward becoming carbon neutral as a lab. So when we initially presented this project, we only knew about TerraCycle, but after some more retrospection and more thinking, we ultimately concluded that there are so many other programs and so many other opportunities available for labs, and this is ultimately what we want to stress. And lastly, we wanted to help them get started. Lab funding, if you guys are familiar, can be a very difficult process, and a lot of the times labs are actually underfunded. So besides just offering solutions, we wanted to help others find their footing and get started. So here was a plan. What better way to bring awareness to research by doing more research, specifically survey research. So why we decided to do survey research was because it allows for a more personalized solution. Not all labs are the same, right? They cover a variety of topics and they have all different types of procedures, and they might have different funding. They're conducted with different materials. So what this really allows for us to understand is what areas we really need to focus on. And the best part about survey research is that it still does an amazing job at raising awareness. We had informational tidbits that really put into perspective how much waste is really created by labs each year. And the best part of doing research is we were better able to quantify sustainability in the lab sector. So as you guys know, sustainability is a pretty broad term and sometimes very difficult to quantify. So this is our step toward actually creating a standard. So survey procedures. I know this sounds tedious, but I just want to let you guys know what really went into this survey. So first we had a consent form, which is typical for most surveys. And then we asked them what type of lab they worked in and their initial opinions on sustainability. And this really showed us where they started. And then later we can compare that with how their lab ended and their ending thoughts on sustainability to really focus on our impact. Then we separated sustainability into energy use and waste. And then we also had an informational section about different programs. So TerraCycle, as I previously mentioned, Millipore Sigma, My Green Lab, and a bunch of other nonprofit organizations that these universities could refer to. And then lastly, we had a section for feedback. So this initial send out was specifically meant to be a smaller sample. So if you guys are familiar with clinical trials, specifically, what they usually do is they take a small sample size and then they just make sure that everything runs smoothly. And then that's when they start expanding. So I'm going to be talking about that initial small sample size. And I really want to emphasize how we found these labs because we had to reach out to a bunch of professors. Like we had an entire Google document, 50 states, 2 universities per state. And we had my entire Green Club working on this. And I was constantly inspired by the members of my Green Club. We had them calling universities, emailing constantly. I've never been so inspired by people's tenacity as my Green Club. And I was just honestly so impressed. And I really also want to thank Alana because she was the one who looked over my survey in addition to Nolan, but she also had experience with research previously, so she really offered a lot of insight. So our goal with this initial sample size was 20 responses, and we got a little over 20, which is fine, but we stuck to that. And the results are honestly going to shock you guys. So what was really nice was that the majority of participants rated sustainability as very important or just important to them. So that's good. But surprisingly, a little less, like barely half of them actually believe that their labs are not sustainable or not sustainable at all. And a lot of them had never heard of any of the sustainability programs mentioned in this survey. So this really kind of speaks to the lack of dissemination of information regarding these programs and how a lot of people, although they may be worried about sustainability, they may not really know where to start, or they don't feel like they have a lot of control as an individual over lab practices. So this became a focus area for us to change. And from the waste sector of our survey, we concluded that the majority of them don't use biodegradable gloves. The majority of them also do not reuse or donate chemicals, and a whopping 81.8% of them don't compost at all. And what we found was either they had financial issues with their university, so it was funding, or they just didn't know about any of these programs, or they didn't know that there were biodegradable gloves. So we found both aspects, financial and just general knowledge, to be factors in contributing to this general unsustainability. So we also have energy takeaways, and this one, you guys have to hold on to your seats because this is really disappointing. Only 9% of the labs we surveyed actually use renewable energy. I'm just gonna let you sit with that information for a second because that is insane. 50% don't clean out their freezers, so there's a bunch of waste just accumulating, and then a bunch of, like, they're going to have to pay for more freezers to kind of compensate for that lack of space. And again, this theme of it's out of their control as an individual, that kept coming up. So that quickly became an area that I hadn't thought of, but I now knew that was a reason behind a lot of this. So what are our plans for the future? We recently created a program called Empower the Environment, and basically what this program does is it provides initiatives and it provides resources on how to get started with climate action. And one of the programs specifically is dedicated to this program, Sustainable Science, and we're expanding it. So it's been nationwide, like, already, but now we have people from Africa who have expressed interest in taking the survey, and we have partners from all over the world, and we are super excited to actually start expanding the survey on a larger scale and getting more data in order to, deduce more correlations, so geographical locations, all that kind of thing. Those are all going to be figured out. And then we are going to focus more on support, so helping labs who need it, so fundraising or rallying at the university. Specifically through Empower the Environment, we're going to help these universities finally get the resources they need in order to enact change. And we're actually presenting this research at another symposium during May, and we want to further publicize the results because more people need to know about this, right? And lastly, I want to once again express gratitude for Ilana Zeitzer, Nolan Zale, both my mentors from the Turning Green organization, who have been a great help in making this survey. The Meadow School Green Club, as I already previously elaborated before on, Miss Brownridge, Miss Stewart. These two were the first is my teacher and the second is my college counselor, who have both provided so much insight in making this survey and actually disseminating the information to universities. And then lastly, I want to thank Turning Green, because obviously none of this would be possible without you guys. And you guys have really played such a huge impact on everyone's life and emphasizing the idea that you as an individual can have so much impact and bring about so much change. So thank you guys.
Amy, that was awesome. And I will say back to you, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing if it wasn't for you guys. So for the inspiration and the heart and the passion that you are infusing into just unbelievable projects, thank you a lot. And what you're doing is huge. So keep doing it. Keep expanding your survey and keep teaching them what to do.